Naoya Inoue is just unstoppable. He scored super bantamweight titles. Now I want you to listen to what I'm about to say. Inoue is unbeatable from bantamweight to featherweight for the next 3 or 4 years. I don't want to hear about little Bam Rodriguez, I don't want to hear about Junto Nakatani, and I don't want to hear about MJ. Nobody is beating Inoue. End of story. Now I titled this video that he needs to take over the boxing world. You might be thinking, isn't he already? Yes he is, but he's still not getting the recognition he deserves due to him fighting in these smaller weight classes. Throughout boxing history, I feel like fighters don't get the true respect that they deserve until they hit the featherweight division. Some boxers make that rare exception, like Inoue, but fans still don't respect their opponents. They look at his resume and see guys who aren't popular, even though these guys are former champions, these guys have incredible, solid records. Yet nobody knows them. Now that's not Inoue's fault, that's just people of course not being heavily invested in the smaller weight divisions. He could really take over the boxing world even more this year by bumping up to a respectable featherweight division this year. I've been calling for him to fight Nick Ball in Wembley for almost a year now. Angelo Leo is another option that he could fight in the States. People have been calling for Gervonta Davis. I think people have been calling for Gervonta Davis. That's dumb. We know that there's a massive weight difference. People want to see that fight because it's two big names. They want to think that Inoue is getting a real challenge. Of course, that's a challenge, but still not a fair challenge, right? Why not have Gervonta Davis fight Canelo Alvarez if we're talking about that? I mean, we look at Inoue. Him and Usyk flip back and forth with pound for pound number one. Due to the quality of opponent that he just fought in a way, I'm not going to put him at number one yet. But before, I was flipping him and Usyk back and forth at number one spot. I think Inoue sits at number two, but depending on how active he is this year, he could definitely take that number one spot again. Okay, we look at his record. 4 division world champion, first of all. Okay, undisputed in 2 weight classes. I'm telling you, this guy's a generational talent. He doesn't keep going. He's still young, all right? 31 years old. He has another 4 to 5 years of a prime boxing self. Depends, of course, how far he moves up in weight, how he, fits into his body as he gets older, because as you get older, you lose some certain skills, right? But the thing with Inoue is he's a complete overall boxer, sitting at 29-0 with 26 knockouts. We saw what he did against good opponents, right? Stephen Fulton was supposed to be his toughest matchup. He just dog-walked him, knocked him down a couple of times, and then stopped him in the 8th round. Righty? Marlon Tapales, unified champion for undisputed titles. He just destroyed him in the 10th round, knocked him out. Louis Neri, all right, this one was very impressive, probably his most impressive win. Okay, might not have been his best opponent, but definitely his most impressive win. Hits the canvas early on, first time ever getting knocked down, then he absolutely dog-walks him, destroys him, knocks him down a couple of times, and stops him in the 6th round to defend his undisputed titles. But people acting like he has a weak resume, that's just not the case, right? Nonito Donaire, he's a future Hall of Famer when you look at Donaire's record, when you look at his resume. Jason Maloney stopped him, Paul Butler, Stephen Fulton, Marlon Tapales, Louis Neri, TJ Doheny. All right, was supposed to, of course, fight Sam Goodman, which was supposed to actually fight him last year. He would have had like 3 fights total last year, or 4, I can't remember. Let's see. Yeah, 3 fights total last year, but Sam Goodman got injured, it got postponed in January. Well, then Sam Goodman pulls out of the fight completely. So then, of course, they had to do a last-minute replacement. Not really Inoue's fault. But he was supposed to fight Sam Goodman. And we already know that fight would have went under 10 rounds as well. Sam Goodman, pretty good boxer. But I'm saying that he could really take over the boxing world this year because, well, he has a lot of options, all right? Bumping up to featherweight to fight Nick Ball, to fight Angelo Leo. Staying maybe at super bantamweight to fight MJ, even though I think he beats MJ, alrighty? I said earlier in the video that even though, yes, I think he'll beat them, still, it's a big fight to make and a very impressive fight to make, of course. Impressive win to add on his resume if he beats MJ, which I think he will. If he beats Junto Nakatani in Japan, that'd be huge, which I think he will. And of course, if he fights and beats Bam Rodriguez, which I think he will. Listen, no disrespect to those 3 fighters I mentioned, but Inoue's on a different level, alrighty? Nobody below Inoue's weight class or in Inoue's weight class is going to beat him. I'm sorry. Inoue's going to have to bump up to featherweight, which I hope we see this year. Alright, another thing that he could take over the boxing world is he's starting to actually travel the world. Hopefully getting a fight in the States this year, which was one of his goals. Of course, Saudi's taking over. There might be a fight in Saudi Arabia. I hope if there is a fight in Saudi Arabia that it's not the Junto Nakatani fight. Alright, the fight, if he's going to fight Junto Nakatani, it has to happen in Japan. Alrighty, I'm not Japanese, obviously, but alrighty, I think they deserve it. They deserve that fight. The biggest fight in Japan history, probably. Boxing. I know they got involved in MMA back in the early 2000s. Japan was very heavily involved in MMA, but at least that I know of, they make that fight in Japan, that's the biggest fight event in boxing history. 2 superstar boxers of Japan, probably the 2 best boxers that Japan ever saw going at it. That fight needs to happen in Japan. I don't want to see it in the States. I don't want to see it in the UK. I don't want to see it in Saudi Arabia. It needs to happen in Japan. But there's a lot of options for Inoue. He wants to take over. I know he does. He always wants to stay active. That's what I like about Inoue. He's always active. All right. Usually he has fights lined up only a couple days after his last fight. That's what's so impressive about him. A complete boxer. He's really going to take over the boxing world. He's really going to become a superstar now. Okay? He's really a superstar just to guys who are really involved. Sure, there's some casuals who just know the name. But for people involved, of course, we know how good he is. But it's time for him to take over the boxing world and become a known name to guys who don't really follow boxing, right? He needs to, of course, get a fight in the States, get his name bigger in the States. Have a fight in the UK, maybe, get his name bigger in the UK. I'd love to see him fight neckball, like I mentioned, in Wembley. He needs to start traveling the world, start, hitting that Manny Pacquiao experience now, right? Manny Pacquiao, really only known in around the Philippines, then became that superstar by hitting the States more, alrighty? And we all know how popular Manny Pacquiao is. Even the casuals know Manny Pacquiao. Even people who never really watch boxing know who Manny Pacquiao is. I'm hoping to see that with Naoya Inoue. Only way that's going to happen is bumping up to featherweight and getting fights outside of Japan. People like to use the excuse, well, all of his fights, majority of his fights are in Japan. He only had a couple fights in the U.S. He never wants to fight in the U.S. He had fights in the U.S. and he knocked them out. He stopped them. I don't think there's nothing to do with corruption. I just want to see him fight in the U.S. because I want to see him. I want to see his brand. I want to see his name get bigger. I want to see him fight in the States for himself, to better his career. That's why I want to see him fight in the States, no matter where he fights. Japan, UK, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Russia, alrighty? Puerto Rico, Argentina. Doesn't matter. He's going to win. He's going to do all right. But I just want to see him do good. I want to see him get the respect he deserves. I want people to start respecting how talented, how much of a complete boxer that a 31-year-old Inoue, undisputed in 2 weight classes, 4-division champion, 29-0, 26 knockouts. See how good he is. Let me know down in the comments what you think of Inoue. Alrighty, how is he going to take over the boxing world? Who do you want to see him fight next? How far can he go? Let me know down in the comments. Make sure to subscribe. Best boxing channel on YouTube. I'm out, guys. Peace.